Hi guys, this is Jack from Viper here. Today, super excited to introduce you to the course, and we're going to be covering the module of finding your product and niche, also validating that. So, strap in for some value bombs in here. There's a lot of tools and processes that you're definitely going to benefit from. So, let's jump into the agenda. So, today we're sort of going to structure it with starting off with how you find a product idea to pursue, and then we're going to go into the product validation series using test audiences, creating a funnel, what tools to use, and then also rewards for getting feedback. Once we've got the product, we've validated it, and we want to start driving some traffic, I'll go through the paid traffic and the organic traffic methods that we've used before. So let's start off with the product idea here. So essentially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find something that is a huge pain point for someone. It's not easy finding a product to go to market with, but it does require a lot of due diligence. You want to make sure that you're actually investing all of your time and money into something that's actually going to resonate with people, and you definitely want to do your research. So first off is to obviously identify an industry. You want to know a lot about this industry and you want to enjoy working in this industry. Second rule is you've got to do a lot of research, a shit ton of research. Make sure you also identify the top influencers and leaders in this niche that you're planning to go in, and also make sure you check out what the competitors are doing so that you know that the niche is not too competitive before you go in there. Now, I'm going to break this down a lot further so that we can get a bit more granular. Okay, so first off, how do you come up with a product idea, and what are some key considerations you need to take into account? First off is there's a magical price point really between the $39 and $200 mark or $199 mark that really sets a nice threshold for someone to pull out that credit card or enter that credit card details. Anything over 200, the sell has to be a little bit longer, the sales funnel is a little bit longer, there is a little bit more value you need to add. So generally aim for something that you can sell between $39 and $199. Anything under $39, it starts getting quite hard to make a profit on, especially once you start doing discounting and paid media and that sort of stuff. Make sure that you can sell your product on Facebook and AdWords. These ad networks are extremely important when it comes to scaling your product. It's a never-ending tap of traffic that if you're making a positive return on investment on these channels, you can just keep scaling further and further up with this. So make sure you choose something that is, Facebook and AdWords compliant. There are a bunch of other social media platforms that you can go into a little bit later on in this, but those two are the biggest ones. And the third key consideration is make sure that you've got at least a 50% profit margin on your product. That will make it a lot easier to make ends meet, discount when you need to, as well as have some room for some customer acquisition, which we just mentioned. Okay, so ideally what you're doing when you're coming up with a product to sell or a store that you're trying to create and deciding what store/products you want to push, the underlying thing is you need to identify a problem, and you're going to want to solve this problem with your product. To find that problem, we're going to go and dive into a few of the places you can find out where people are having problems, some pain points people are having, and dissect those, kind of pinpoint the ones that we can solve and the ones that we can make a profit from. So we're going to break this down into a few different categories. The first one is going to be communities. People are always talking about their problems and giving solutions in communities, so we'll look at those in a minute. Forums, which are not as active as they used to be, but they're still around, and they're usually extremely passionate about interest groups. So once you've decided on a niche, definitely make sure that you find all the top forums in that niche. Remember, this niche is something that you have to enjoy doing. Social indicators such as BuzzSumo, this is a tool that's great for this. I'll go into that a little bit later. And keyword research. This is super important to check out the volume of traffic that you might be able to get from the Google search results. Okay, so let's take a look at a Facebook group. So for example, these are super active, people are constantly posting in there, and a lot of people are asking questions. This is an example here which shows someone who's in a Facebook group and she's asked a question saying, calling all young businesswomen, do you use Instagram to clothes shop or get style inspiration? If you do, what tags do you search for? If not, do you get style inspiration from other social media? So this is a pain point or a problem that this girl is having. And so this can spark some ideas. So generating a tool that organizes hashtags or keywords, that sort of thing, or matching up hashtags and keywords with products. So this is an example of when you can use a Facebook group to actually find a problem and come up with a solution. And I suggest that when you're going through all of these groups, the problem that you choose has to come up pretty frequently. So every now and again, you need to be able to see this problem rise, not just a once-off. Second thing about the Facebook groups is you want to be involved in some high quality ones. So when you're going to join these Facebook groups, make sure that you join a Facebook group that has at least 500 members, posting pretty actively throughout the day. Admins are enforcing sharing and contribution instead of just people promoting and spamming the group. And you need to make sure that your answer, when you post questions to that group, that people are actually responding. So that's kind of like the key indicators for a highly active and highly valuable group. So check out the Facebook groups, find some problems, ask some questions, and you'll then be making a few steps closer to finding your product. Another great place is using Quora. This is pretty much an online question and answer community. It's fantastic, and this is an example here with who asked this question. We don't have the name of the user, but he pretty much asked the question is, I want to go on holiday, but I can't afford to have my dog cared for while I'm away. What should I do? So this is a great example of a problem that this guy's having, and we could provide a possible solution. You can see there's a comment there, and we can also ask some follow-up questions to this guy to get a better understanding of his persona and his situation. But from this, you could spark a product idea of, say, for example, an Airbnb for dogs. So, once you go away on holidays, your dog is also matched with someone in your community or someone in your neighborhood, and you drop your dog off before you leave, and it's a small price to pay. The other thing is Reddit. Reddit is a fantastic place that's super, super passionate. There's tons of people complaining and moaning on here, so it's a great place to look for problems to solve. One of the biggest ones is that I found on here was to do with pets. So I'm using that as an example. This guy here hates to walk his dog at night. So that can trigger an idea or a product such as glow-in-the-dark dog collars or something. Now this idea is probably already been done, but this is an example of someone having a problem and then you solving that issue. So definitely check out Reddit for some of those. And you can definitely join more specific niche threads and follow along to see when new comments and new questions and problems coming out. If you want to meet people face to face, be a little bit more interactive, check out meetup.com. Go find your niche that you want to go into. So for example, if I wanted to start a product in the green technology sector, I would look up green technology in my area for meetups. And you'll find a bunch of networks that you can then go along, join, see what people are saying, see what problems they're having, ask a lot of questions. This is a much more interactive way to go about it, and it really helps in the cycle of feedback because it's quite fast when you're having a conversation. Another great place to find some product ideas is forums. As I mentioned before, they're obviously not as active as they used to be, but you can still find a lot of people having issues, especially in the tech niche. So make sure that you find your niche and then identify the top forums and get involved there too. Now, one more that I wanted to add in here before we close up the places to find ideas for problems to solve is BuzzSumo. This is pretty much a social media interaction tool that allows you to look at the amount of shares and engagements on a post. So what you can do is you can choose your niche or choose some product ideas and then plug them into the search box here, and you can see what posts have been written about it and also how viral they went, how many shares, how many engagements they got. So that really helps you gauge how many people are sharing this, how many people are aware of this problem and product. So in this one, I obviously use phone battery dies, and I'm looking and scouting for articles around people having problems or articles that are resonating really well and getting a lot of traction, but there's no product for that article. So now we're going to move on to the keyword research. As I mentioned before, this is extremely important because what's going to happen is once you create a website and you've got a product up, one of your traffic sources is obviously going to be Google Organic. So this is when someone goes to Google, they type in whatever they're looking for, and hopefully you come up for the product that you're trying to market. So just a few key rules for choosing some core keywords. Now this is very brief, you can dive into keyword research a lot more, but for example here we have the core keyword kind of indicator being around 4,000 to 12,000 keyword searches a month. Now this is based in the US, and you want to make sure that you are choosing keywords that have enough volume. So that's why we recommend that 4,000 to 12,000 monthly searches for your core keywords. Try and have 2 or 3 of these, and then you also can build out a keyword list of longer tail keywords. So this is usually 50 to 500 monthly searches, and this is what you're going to write your articles and stuff on. When you've got a website up, you've got your product, you've got a blog, that sort of thing. So it's best to do this planning in advance so that you kind of know that there's a lot of people searching for what you're offering. So the example here is I looked at the search volume for how to draw anime, and you can see here a lot of people are searching for how to draw anime. So this could give you an idea to create an anime drawing course or an anime coloring book, something like that. So this can be a great place to find issues, but I would usually suggest that this be your last step after you've checked out all of the forums and groups, because you need to have a little bit more direction when you're entering keywords. So you can see here that I already had the how to draw an anime keyword because I'd done a little bit of research and found out that people were asking that. And then this has given me a few keywords that people are searching. And then obviously you would create products around these ones. Okay, so now that we have chosen our product, we're actually going to do some product validation. So by this point, we should have chosen our product, we should have found our problems and decided how we're going to solve that problem with the product. And before we go into manufacturing and building a website and doing all of that fun stuff, we want to make sure that people want this product or people would buy this product. Okay, so just like we mentioned before, once you've got the product, definitely do the keyword research to make sure that the audience size is big enough. Also check out a tool called Google Trends. This will show if your trend is going up or down, and it can also pull in some information about the niche that you're about to go into. So here you can see for the Airbnb for dogs that we identified earlier in one of those groups, you can see that there's about 110 monthly searches, which is quite low, but it is trending in the upward direction for monthly searches. So this could be developing into a bigger industry. And if you see down the bottom there, Airbnb for dogs has 590. So this is probably a growing niche. So it might be worth doing some more. It might be worth doing some more research on this and actually trying to run some validation tests on this, because there might be something here. So audience testing. Now, what we want to do is we want to actually put forward our product to audiences, whether it's people we know, people we don't know, and get their feedback. We want to understand, if this problem is a big enough problem, and if it is, how much would they pay for it? And then we go back and we do the math. So we say, okay, if this is a big problem, this is my product, how much is it going to cost me to produce it? How much are people willing to pay for it? And we move forward from there. So in this chapter, we're going to cover the audience test, the blueprint funnel, landing pages, email service provider, some paid ads tests, and then the results. Okay, so this is pretty much the basic layout of a funnel that we want to set up. So there's a bunch of tools that I'm going to show you that will allow you to do this, but essentially once we've got our idea, so we've done the research, we've got our product, we've got our niche, now it's time to test it. So the first thing we're going to need is some traffic. So there's two types of traffic. We can do paid or organic. We're going to cover both of these, but first off we need to build out our funnel a little bit. Now this doesn't have to be complicated. There's a ton of tools that make this super easy, but essentially what you're going to need is pretty much a basic landing page. You're going to want to offer some sort of incentive, and then you're going to want to offer a survey. So you're really going to want people to fill out the survey, give you some valuable information which will tell you if this product is viable or not, and then they're going to want something for that. So you've got to have some sort of lead bait or some sort of asset to exchange them for their time and their email. And so once they've gone through the landing page, done the survey, got the lead bait, they'll then go into an email drip. Now you can do this with a email service provider, but essentially just what you want to do is you want to have all of those emails ready for when you launch your product, because these people have already taken an interest. So when you go to launch your product, these will be an audience that you've already built out. So it's definitely worth putting these into an email service provider and eventually setting up an automated drip for these guys. Even if the drip starts off just thanking them and saying, hey, I'm going to release this in X amount of weeks, you'll be the first to get an update and you'll get exclusive first time offers. The other thing you can do is obviously branch off, and if you have a larger niche or a more complicated product and you're wanting to test a few different ones, you can split up these emails and surveys by segments. So for the dog one, if we were going down that path, we could say Airbnb for dogs, Airbnb for cats, and we could test those three different types and put all three of those into different email drips, and that's how we would segment that. But I highly suggest you just start off with one and you move forward from there. Now, these are the tools that I usually use to build out these landing pages. Now, they're pretty straightforward and relatively easy to use. Obviously, one of the most popular ones is lead pages, which is great for creating landing pages, and they integrate with a lot of things, especially Facebook. We're going to run a lot of our paid traffic, so they're definitely worth considering. Instapage is super easy to build and super easy to get up and running. You can have a landing page built out for these guys in under half an hour. ClickFunnels, which is a little bit more advanced, but it's definitely a good investment of money because there are a lot of features in there that will help you either upsell, downsell on the content upgrades and get a little bit more information. Now, what we're going to want to do here, circle back to that lead bait that we were talking about. So people don't like giving up their time for free. So essentially what we're doing is we're asking someone for information, we're asking someone for their opinion, so we need to offer them something in exchange for this. Now, big companies do focus groups, they spend a ton of money doing this, but we're starting out, so we don't want to do that. And the best way to actually incentivize people is to give them something they want. So trying to validate your product, create some sort of asset that ties into that niche or ties into a similar product or your product that you're thinking of developing, and offer that in exchange for them to fill out the survey. So a few things is guides, checklists, calculators, and widgets. They are all good content. They are all good bonuses or lead bait to get someone to fill out your survey. The other thing you can do is heavily incentivize discounts. So for example, you see this all the time on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, people offering up their product idea in exchange for a special offer. So the first 100 products are heavily discounted or something, and you contribute to be one of the people who gets the first products. The other thing that you see a fair bit on Kickstarter is customized versions of the product. So, it's got your name engraved on it or something like that. Now, an example here for when we were validating Viper's content upgrade tool is we were offering to build people a free content upgrade if they would give us the feedback from our survey. So this really helped incentivize people to do that because people don't have the time or didn't want to spend the time creating their content upgrade. But we were willing to do that in exchange for that feedback and opinions. Now, as we talked about before, we're going to need an email service provider. There's two ones that I probably recommend. First one is MailChimp. If you're on a very small budget and you want to find a free account that pretty much covers everything, MailChimp's free up to 2,000 emails, so just put all of your emails in there that you're collecting. The other option here, which is a bit more advanced, is Drip. These guys are really good at automating and creating workflows and all that sort of stuff, so they're definitely worth considering, but they don't have as good an incentive for the free account. They only offer 100 subscribers. The third one that I probably am going to throw in here if you are doing e-commerce is Klaviyo. Klaviyo is another email service provider that's really good for e-commerce and integrates directly with Shopify, which is a great e-commerce store that we would recommend as well. Okay, so now that we've got the outline of our funnel, we know what tools we're going to use, and we know what email service provider we're going to use, we now have to then actually build the survey. The types of questions that we're going to want to ask in this survey is, do they already have a product that solves this problem? How much pain does this cause them? Is this problem big enough for them to care about? Are they going out of their way to solve this, or are they going out of their way to find a solution to this? How are they currently trying to solve it? So if it is a big enough problem, how are they currently solving it? Is it a good way of solving it, bad way of solving it? How can you improve that? You really want to find out from them how they're trying to solve it. You don't want to give them a possible solution until you've heard what they have to say about the problem, and also wait until you've heard what they are currently trying to do to solve that problem to see if your product idea would be better than the current solution that they've got. And the other one that I always like to also ask is, how much would they be willing to pay? Obviously, this varies a lot because people can say what they want to say. I would pay $100, but then when it comes down to it, they wouldn't. But I definitely still ask this question just to get a general idea of how big a pain point this is for someone. Usually, people can tie a dollar amount to how painful it is. Okay, so a few things you want to look out for when you're running your contest, a few danger zones. Do not abide by everything you hear by 100%. Take it all with a grain of salt. Be very analytical. Do majority rules decisions. Collect enough data. Make sure you're collecting a good amount of data, like a few hundred entries, to get a clear understanding of the trends. If you only collect 5 surveys, you're probably not going to be able to have enough data to understand the problem correctly. So make sure that you've got enough data. As I mentioned before, people might say they're willing to pay $100, but when it actually comes putting down the money, they don't do that. So definitely just use the monetary value as a guide. Don't use that to price your product. Make sure that when you're pricing your product, you are taking into consideration, cost to produce it, marketing costs, and the profit margins you want to get. Be careful with the questions you ask. If you are asking super basic, super shallow questions, you're going to get basic and shallow answers. You want to really define your question and get people to really answer that with a lot of thought before they write it down. You don't just want a yes-no answer too much. Yes-no answers are great when you already understand what the question is going to be and you know that there's only a yes or no answer. But definitely leave some of your questions open-ended so that you can actually hear what the people have to say about the problem. Now, a few ideas for how to build your contest. Now that we know what we need to include in it, what we need to do for it, check out Google Forms. These guys are free. They're super flexible and super easy to use. The other option is Typeform. These guys are a little bit more stylish and they do have pricing plans for advanced features. You probably just need to start with the basic features, but it will be a lot easier to deliver your lead bait using Google Forms than it will be Typeform. And the other option is literally just to collect people's emails and directly email them from your own email account. This is a very manual process, so I highly recommend automating it with tools above, but it's always open if you want to do it that way. Another thing to also note is before you send out your survey, make sure that you run it past a few people you know, a few people you don't know before you start sending traffic to it. So we're going to go over traffic in the next section, but I just want to make sure that we've spent so much time creating this content for the survey. Make sure that you run it past a few people, because what you think is a good question may not actually be a good question. So definitely run it past a few people before you finalize the survey and enter it into your funnel. So now we're going to go over the paid traffic, starting with the survey. Okay, so just to recap, done the research to find the problem, we've found the pain points, we understand the funnel that we need to set up, we know the survey that we are putting together, we've created that, and now what we need, the final piece, is actually traffic to drive to our funnel. So essentially what's going to happen is once we have all of this traffic, we send them to our funnel, they opt in to get the lead bait, they get shown the survey, they fill out the survey, we deliver the lead bait to them, and then their email then goes on to your email service provider. So these are a few ways that we can actually generate some traffic. There are paid and organic versions of this, organic meaning free. So here we have a few social platforms, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and of course you can buy lists or traffic from other sources that we can cover as well at the end. But we'll start off with Facebook, because this is probably the most common and most highly recommended one to use. You don't have to spend too much money, and you don't really have to put too much time and effort into this. It's quite easy to set up. They make it very user-friendly. But I'll just go over a few things that you should definitely consider before you go and run any ads to your survey funnel. So starting off, make sure that you use the campaign type of website clicks or conversions. Conversions is a little bit more of an advanced feature, so you probably don't need to go into that just yet. So the easiest method is just to set up a website click campaign. Start with the Facebook newsfeed and mobile. Start with Facebook newsfeed on mobile and desktop. Don't worry about Instagram and all of those other advanced placements. Just start super basic with the main newsfeed. You'll get much better results that way. And as I just said, don't bother about the Instagram Messenger and Audience Insights, Audience Network just yet. You want to really nail the basic stuff first before you move on to that. And remember, this step, we're just trying to get people to fill out that survey, collect a bunch of information so that we can then say, okay, this product is worth developing. People want it, the pain point is big enough, and people are willing to pay for it. So how do we do this with an ad? So we pretty much want to create an ad, and what an ad consists of on Facebook is an image, a title, some ad text, and some link descriptions. Now, here's an example of one that I just mocked up based on the example that we used for the hashtag pain point that we found. So the ad is pretty much being super punchy. It's saying, fill out this really short survey, and we will deliver you a free guide or a free list of the top hashtags used in your industry. So this is quite compelling for someone to fill out. It's definitely a motivator to get them to invest 56 seconds of their life into. So you need to make it super compelling, otherwise people aren't going to really want to fill out that survey. And so using that lead bait is key when it comes to getting results on Facebook. So audience testing. So obviously we just saw an ad right there. Now, a few things to consider and remember on how to create a really good ad is have super compelling images, make them bright, either a product shot or a lifestyle shot. Anything that's got cute pets or animals in it does really well. Essentially what you want is people engaging on your post. And you also want to, pinpoint pain and pinpoint the problem as to why someone should care to read your survey or fill out your survey. If you find the pain point and target people who have that pain point, they're going to be much more likely to fill out your survey. Remember, majority of Facebook backgrounds and features are white and blue. So use bright colors like greens, reds, oranges, that sort of thing to make it stand out against the Facebook sort of theme. You probably won't have this, but if you do have a video or you want to record yourself taking a video, video performs a lot better on Facebook than images. So if you do have that asset, highly encourage you to test that as well. And the final thing is to have a very clear CTA. So CTA meaning call to action. When you're writing copy, make sure that there is a clear incentive. So you say, okay, fill out this survey, do this, do that. Make sure you list what you want them to do so that there's no confusion. Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea of what we need to create in terms of an ad. A few Facebook copywriting tips. This will help you write more compelling. Copy. But first off, you want to talk in the messaging or the tone of the person you're trying to resonate with. So, do they respond to inspirational copy? Do they respond to critical? Do they respond to quick copy, long copy, or do they respond to complaining? So, whining and complaining. Don't you hate this? Fill out this survey. Or inspirational is like, wouldn't you like this? Fill out this survey. Always include, or try and always include, numbers, facts, or stats in your headline. This is an attention grabber. So people like seeing stats and numbers. It makes them read the title, and once they've read the title, you then need to encourage them to click. So it's just a constant funnel of getting someone to read, then click, then fill out your survey, then join your mailing list. Remember that people read left to right, but on Facebook they usually read the heading first. So make the heading the most compelling part of the ad. You can use caps lock on text to make it stand out, or you can definitely use emojis, which, as you can see on this page, makes the text stand out a lot and grabs your attention. The other thing that I just did mention before, but test long form and short form ads. So a long form would be telling a story and then asking for the CTA at the end. A short form copy ad would be something where you're just straight up asking for the CTA, and it's very punchy. It's only 2 to 3 sentences, whereas a long form can be more of a paragraph or a few paragraphs in some cases. Okay, so now that we know how to create an ad, we've got some tips on what the image should look like, what the text should look like. We're going to look at the targeting. So Facebook has some pretty basic stuff, or very advanced stuff as well, but you're going to want to start pretty basic. Start off targeting with your interests. So if there's competitors in your space, target people who are already following your competitors' pages. Find groups and associations, see if they've got Facebook pages, target those. Also larger brands. So for example, if people shop at certain brands, they're not necessarily competitors, but that the people you're trying to find shop at these places, target them as well. The other thing is to use geographic targeting. So this will allow you to really narrow in. You can either target by radius, target by city, state, country, depending on what your product is and how large you want your audience to be. Another great thing is to narrow down the age, gender, and relationship of your ideal customer for this product. Something that's going to appeal, if you're creating a product like pocket knives, that's not going to appeal to a female, so obviously choose the male gender to serve the ads to. Same thing if you are creating a new style of walking stick, target your ads to people who are over 50. Don't include people under 50. The other thing that's a little bit more complicated, but is definitely worth looking into if you do have the resources, is custom audiences by Facebook. So this is when Facebook will allow you to upload an email list that you might have, or if you have a Facebook pixel on your website, or if you don't even have a website, don't even worry about this. But the other thing is, if you already have a Facebook page, say you've got a really strong Facebook page, but you don't have a product yet for your brand or blog, you can use people who engage with your Facebook page as well to create an audience. So that will help you get your survey in front of more people. Okay, so that was the paid traffic. Now, if you're on a super strict budget, you don't necessarily have to use paid. I encourage you to at least test it out for a few $100s. But the other option is to go down the organic / free traffic route. This is a little bit harder and it's a lot harder to scale, but it's definitely an option if you've got the time to invest. Organic traffic usually takes a lot longer to generate and is a little bit slower, but a few low-hanging fruit or easy ways to generate free traffic is obviously ask friends and family. You might get some skewed results here, but it's a great place to start. Cold emails, send out personal emails to people in that niche, people who are part of organizations that might have this problem. You can find all of these people online, LinkedIn, all sorts of places. If you've already got a Facebook page, or if you've got a personal Facebook, ask your personal Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. Ask your current followers if they're having this problem, or if they know anybody who is having that problem. So just put the post out there, say, tag anyone who's got this problem, or tag anyone who has an opinion, that sort of thing. So there's a few ways that you can generate some organic results. The other ways we went over was we started off looking for problems in the community. Now you can also ask questions in those communities to find answers to your product idea. So that will really help you generate some feedback on your product idea or your niche idea. And a few great places to start are Reddit and Facebook groups. Those are probably the two best ones. And then you can sort of filter down to the niche forums, Slack groups, Twitter discussions, all those sort of things. But yeah, as you can see, there's not as many options for organic. You need to get a lot more creative with organic traffic, and it does take a little bit longer to organize and get going. But essentially what you want to do is just drive all of this traffic, paid or organic, to your landing page, which then has your survey drip attached to it. Okay, so just a few things that aren't really paid traffic, but they're paid options. If you've got the budget and you don't want to run paid ads, you don't want to do the organic stuff, you can always hire a digital agency, hire a company to do it for you. Check out the options for freelancers, have a look at Upwork, see if there's anyone willing to do this, have a virtual assistant help you out with all this stuff. The other thing you can do is always find a business partner, and so you can split the load, makes it a little bit easier and a lot less lonely. Definitely helps in increasing your bandwidth to do this sort of stuff if you've currently got a job, or if you currently can't commit 100% to it. As I just mentioned before, outsourcing to platforms like Upwork. So this would be an example of using the virtual assistant or finding a freelancer. Okay, so that is the basics of how to find a pain point, how to find a product idea, how to validate that product idea, and obviously how to send the traffic to that product idea's survey funnel. Now we'll be going over a few more things in some future chapters, but I hope you got a lot of stuff out of this one, and this is a great starting point.